Good morning and welcome to this seminar on Vedic mindfulness. The concept started with my friend Katir from Singapore. He's a mindfulness expert, plus he's also a guru in Advaita. So we were just discussing about 6 months back. So I was intrigued with the fact that he's actually studied the traditional Vedanta. He's a disciple of Puja Swami Dayanand Saraswati. Uh, so I was very intrigued with the fact that his profession is actually mindfulness. So he does the Western mindfulness in his day life, but in his evening he teaches in the temple Vedanta. So I said, look, don't you find this contradictory in the sense that Sakshi Bhava, for example, or Nididhyasana, these are concepts that we've learned in Vedanta, and suddenly this whole thing has been sort of removed from the original sources. And then we found that even the Buddhists from Vipassana, from where this mindfulness has started, they are now trying to reclaim it and saying and putting the adjective Tibetan mindfulness. So if you go to academic.edu, you'll see a lot of articles about how mindfulness is being taken away from even Buddhism. So then I said we should do non-dual mindfulness as a seminar. And then I came back to Dr. Nagaraji and we were discussing about this whole thing about mindfulness from the Vedas and how it has gone from the Vedic Upanishadic thought to the Buddhist thought to the Western thought. So we thought this is a good way to discuss about how various concepts of mindfulness were actually embedded in the Vedic wisdom. And that's how we are here today. So all this is about 6 months since we thought and we issued a call for papers. It was very overwhelming to receive so many papers. Actually, if you see, so just the thought, and then everybody started thinking about it, and the kind of papers that have come are very interesting. Just to take a step back and talk a little bit about what we are doing at Indic Academy. We are now a 4-year-old institution. We have started in a particular way and then it is just growing so rapidly. It's like an internet startup, like you hear of Oyo and Flipkart and the rapid growth that you see in these startups. That's how this is a dharmic startup which is growing so rapidly. It's comprising of volunteers. It's all volunteer-driven organization, and all over the world. We are right now discussing in Atlanta to start a chapter. We have 10 chapters in US. So overall, we have 30 chapters all over the world. Volunteers who are willing to hold meetings when we say chapters. So what this tells us is that there is a latent demand that which we are tapping into, and people are raising to that. And the consciousness, the awareness is happening, and truly, it's a sort of an exponential growth. So what we define ourselves today is that we are a non-traditional university for traditional wisdom. So that's if somebody asks what is Indic Academy, we are a non-traditional university for traditional knowledge. And what we're trying to do is to do a global renaissance that's based on Indic civilizational thought. And the two things that we're trying to do, one is transform the individual and also nurture an ecosystem. So that's really what we're trying to do. An individual transformation and an ecosystem building. And both these two things have been happening. At the individual level, again, using the Sutra Bhasha, selfless and self. That's how I define the individual transformation. The first self is the lower S, which is basically trying to say, first discover your Swadharma, discover your aptitude, discover your passion first before you set out your journey of trying to do service for your Dharma. So each one has a different proclivity, different inclination, different vasanas. So you first discover that. And that discovery process itself can be classified based on the domains in which you're interested, and also based on uh, kind of aptitude. Are you a thinking types, or are you good in organizing, or are you good in communication? You have combination. So we try to understand each person's basic inherent nature, and then try to nurture him or her. So that's what I mean by self. And the second thing, when we say selfless, basically social entrepreneurship is very big, is making a big impact thanks to CSR. A lot of funds are flowing into impact investing, social entrepreneurship. So when we are talking about service to and to preserve or protect or promote our dharma, we have to think of it like an entrepreneur. We can't just think of it as an intellectual exercise, but you have to think of it as an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur delivers something to a consumer. So you have to think of it from a point of view that you're delivering something. If you're writing a book, you're delivering a product called a book, which will be read and there's an experience to the consumer. So the way we look at it is that there's a product, there's an experience, or there's a service. So you can be a teacher, and that's a service you're doing, or there's a product, or you're giving an experience. So that's the basic idea when we think of selfless, and then think of you have to deliver a product. Think of everything that you're trying to do for dharma in terms of these three things: a product, a service, or an experience. And what should be the qualities? Obviously, we're sitting here today because of the digestion, as Rajiv Malhotra says, or cultural appropriation. So the Western world, which blames the developing world on intellectual property rights, actually is the biggest theft. So they're very adept at stealing intellectual properties. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to reclaim. And when we are trying to reclaim it, what we have to do is that the product, service, or experience has to be authentic. So that's what we have to do. We have to go back to the roots and make it authentic. And then it has to be immersive. All these fights, all that we are trying to do is of no use if it's just at the intellectual level. Unless we do it with a sense of devotion, with that immersion, then there's no transformation that's going to happen. So that's why the immersive part has to happen. And then lastly, that product, service, or experience has to be transformative. The last thing when we talk about self in terms of a capital self is basically we're looking at three aspects. One is looking at, my colleague Vinay is here, we're looking at reclaiming yoga. Again, there are a number of people who are doing this 200-hour programs. Number of people worldwide, there are millions of people who have done this 200-hour programs or 500-hour programs. But all these at the asana, all this is at the meditation level. That's all they're doing. And what we are trying to say is that, look, make it to the yoga, calling it yogacharya. So you have to learn the Sanskritam, you have to learn the sutras, you have to learn the therapy, so you have to learn the counseling. That's the point that we need to do. We have to transform all these millions of people who are doing yoga from being just a yoga teacher into a yogacharya teacher. That's what we are trying to do. So bringing back that authenticity again. Again, you have this concept of executive coaching, which is very big. You go to I'm in the finance business, so I have a lot of friends in hedge funds in Singapore and in California and New York. And all of them, the moment they become a vice president, the HR calls them and says, okay, go for an executive coach. So the executive coach gives them for 1 year, counseling. And what does that executive coach know? He's not, he comes back to our Eastern spirituality, learns that, okay, consciousness is electricity or meditation or whatever that thing is, and then he does that. So really, there is no program for executive coaching that's authentic. That's a fact. And there's an opportunity out there for us to develop an executive coaching program. So my friend Sridhar recently attended a program. So we're trying to develop that to make authentic executive coaches. And lastly, again, Puja Swami Dayananda Saraswati and Swami Chenmayananda, they have started this 3-year authentic coaching in Vedanta. But there's no scale. Sandipani probably generates what 100 and totally the world is needs spiritual gurus, trained gurus, not people who just digest something and then package it and sell. But then we need to think of producing trained gurus who know the entire gamut. And that's what we're trying to do in that capital self. And quickly on the way we are trying to nurture the ecosystem is we are trying to develop specialized networks. So each one, I don't have the proclivity for a certain thing, but I might be good in a particular thing. So we need to now think, when we are thinking of ecosystem, we have to think of specialized networks. And for example, recently we just launched this Indic Yatra network, and it's just opening up. I'm amazed at the fact that within 1 month of launching that, I'm meeting so many people, so many scholars, so many guides, so many people who are involved in experiences. There's somebody in Varanasi, there's somebody in Madras. There's so many people who are very much interested in learning history. So what does it mean? It means that while we wait for this government to change the history books, which may happen in 2050, but meanwhile, we can ourselves learn history and offer it as a service, as an experience. You see, that's the thing. So if you learn about your own district, your own location, and there is a Sthala Purana there, and there is some history there, learn about it and offer it as an experience. And that is the way the transformation can come. We don't need to wait for something else, but we can do it ourselves if we have an inclination for history. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create specialized networks. We have a Mimamsa network, we have a yoga network, we have a Yatra network, we have an economic network. So different specialized networks. That's how we are trying to create this. So we talk about connect, cooperate, and collaborate. That's the way we are trying to build the ecosystem. So first, you have to have like-minded people to connect, and then you help each other through cooperation, and then you collaborate and create new work. So that's the way the ecosystem is being nurtured consciously, and we have done more than 200 grants, travel grants, project grants, event grants, promotion grants, all kinds of grants. So if you go to academic.edu and you see the grants, so we are envisaging a situation that we are going to have grants like that, so that no person who is involved in the service of Dharma is ever going to stop because of lack of resources. And all that requires is somebody who is credible, somebody who is delivering it, somebody who is accountable. That's what is required. We were not having this before. Somebody wants to give a money, or somebody wants to give donation. There's no a conduit that's there. So what we are doing now is becoming that credible conduit, so that we are now tying up with foundations. I just received from my Rakhi sister. She said she gave me $35,000 donation for Mahabharata studies. So all this requires is that there are several people on our side who want to donate, but they're looking for credible organization. And there are several people who need the resources. And that's the bridge that we are trying to build. We're also trying to do actively collaborations. He's going to almost all the Sanskrit universities he has a tie-up with, and we are nurturing them, saying that, look, we're doing scholarships. So this is and again, important things. Through these collaborations, with my friend Sai is here, we have done work in MIT, we have done work in Kaviguru University in Nagpur. So we are working with multiple institutions, and that's the way to go. We have to work with multiple institutions. If you want to nurture a good ecosystem, you have to do it. Because the way we look at collaborations is that we look at collaborations in terms of technical collaborations, in terms of financial collaborations, in terms of infrastructure collaboration. Like we have this fantastic collaboration with IGNC, where they're providing us the infrastructure. Their whole thing is sponsored by them, and we are all here because of that. So there's an infrastructure collaboration. There's a marketing collaboration. So Indic Academy is, because of the network that we are and the brand that we are creating, we are able to be channel partners to several people who want to offer this service. So you think of it as collaborations, and then think of what we are offering it. Like we are collaborating with Raghu's, and we're marketing his courses. So that's the kind of thing. I also want to talk about how we're looking at children. My colleague is here, Soumya. Soumya, can I recognize? Raise your hand somewhere. Soumya is here. So we just started something called iGen Plus, which is basically focused on children. And what we are saying is that we are going to reach out to children outside their classroom, right? And outside their curriculum. So that's what we're trying to do, because we're not going to depend on the government to change the curriculum or change anything. That's not going to happen so easily. So this is a very clear focus that we want to change, bring in the change outside this. That's the thing. So she has single-handedly delivered 2 teen festivals in last 2 years. And now we have very, very big plans to start like a Sunday school in various schools in India, wherein for 2 hours we tell parents, drop your children, we will teach them our mythological stories, we'll teach them chanting, we'll teach them values from our wisdom. And sure enough, if we are able to properly crack this, this can be a huge thing because it's outside. Nobody can object to. It's an optional thing. If you don't want it, don't want it. Otherwise, you drop it. And every nuclear family today would want that. So that's what we're doing. We're competitions, we're doing courses, we are bringing in NRI children for curatorial experiences. And she's doing a musical trail in December. So you see, the point I'm trying to tell you about this is that the whole thing will thrive. Our time has come. Our time for renaissance of our dharma has come. So please get out of this negative mindset, this Twitter world, this Facebook world. And if you actually think of, I am a student of something, from my unique knowledge systems. I want to offer it as a product or a service or an experience. Just think of it like this, and I'm telling you, transformation will happen here and now. Thank you very much.